I figured you'd be sick of drills by now. Hopefully our training exercises will be more interesting than what they've had you doing at the academy. Open the door by clicking the right mouse button. The right button uses items in the world. The key on the desk opens encryption-based nanotech locks. When you pick it up, it will automatically be added to your keyring. Use the keyring to unlock the door and proceed to the next area. You're going to get a lot of equipment during these exercises. Press F1 at any time to access the inventory screen, which will let you add and remove items from the tool belt. Press F2 to view your current goals and any notes you may decide to take. On a typical mission, a UNATCO agent's objectives are logged electronically so that he can stay on task at all times. Now pick up a weapon and try to break open those crates. One of them's indestructible, but the others contain things you might find useful. Now pick up the lockpick and use it to open the door. Lockpicking takes time and expends the self-assembling resources of modern lockpicks. Just be patient and remember your job. At higher skill levels, you won't need as much time or lockpick resources to pick a lock. The code to the door has been stored in that data cube. Right-click on the data cube to read the contents, then type the code into the keypad. You activate the keypad with the right mouse button, just like you activate a data cube or any object in the world. Use the disposable multi-tools on the table to hack the keypad up ahead. A multi-tool's resources are finite. When a tool is depleted, it becomes useless. The manual describes other uses for it. At higher skill levels, you will need less time and multi-tool resources to hack in advance. Lying in front of you is a brave guy who appeared to be rendered unconscious for this next training exercise. Highlight and search him to find the key to the medical room.
Heads up, JC. Your brother Paul is on his way to meet you at the dock. The NSF is raiding the island and shots have been fired. I repeat, find Paul. I will monitor your situation from HQ.
Paul, I thought you... Welcome to the... Didn't think you... The NSF. What are we waiting for? The NSF took all I've got. Remember that we're... Never... The GEP... Great. I'll see you. Your primary... What am I ordering? Interrogate...
NSF everywhere, JC. Your orders are to shoot on sight. A UNATCO informant on the North Dock will get you inside the statue. Look for a bum. Identify yourself with the phrase, iron and copper. If you want to make a covert approach, remember the Academy stealth course. Stay in the field of view, walk slowly to stay quiet, and crouch behind cover. Or if you have to get your hands dirty, remember that a headshot is a good take.
30 credit.
God! 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 God!
Be careful. The NSF has set up patchwork security systems here. The NSF put a commercial-grade security bot in this area. You can either avoid its patrol route, or, if you're feeling lucky, try and take it out with the EMP grenades or explosives. I wouldn't recommend taking it on with small arms.
What's the situation? You're taking over. What about the... Still in? I'll quit. If you need me, just like the movie. Yeah, and take a charger for whatever you... And JC.
We're getting reports of a hostage situation in a Ton Hotel, which is at the southeast corner of the block. When you stayed with Paul, did you meet Mr. Renton and his daughter Sandra?
Denton, you want these?
What?
Give him the grenades. Look, you're just... Here's... Look, do you...
Sure.
Here. We've got them surrounded. The NSF were heading for the hotel, but we cut them off. All clear.
What I'm telling you, girl.
You said I didn't have to. You want something? Talk to Johnny.
terminal at LaGuardia owned by Juan Ivanovich Lebedev. We're certain based on what you've discovered that he's working with terrorists. Your orders are to locate and kill him. We're sending you a map of the airfield. Make sure you and I won't miss any shots. I've notified the recovery team. One barrel left. We think this one may actually be on Lebedev's jet.
Who was that? I didn't...
Okay, you need to find Tracer Tom. He used to drop Paul off in a small compound east of the market. You could start there. Don't lose any time. Your kill switch is 12 hours old. If you die, our plans will be locate Tracer Tom.
Please, look around. Two?
I work for the butcher too. Everybody in Wanchai Market.
Do you want to do business in Wang Chai?
We already have an arrangement with the Luminous Path.
Do you want to do business in Wang Chai?
I will not be threatened.
Don't think the Luminous Path can protect you.
Used to visit, but I don't know who it belongs to. I think I'm clear now. Good thing the NSA invested in stealth technology.
Here you go.
Perfect.
I feel silly. You look good. Move your hips a little more. There you go.
Hello.
I've never seen so many troopers. They must be close to a breakthrough.
But which division?
Maybe all of them.
Oh, sure. I don't mind needles.
Have another drink?
Don't mind if I do.
Shake it. Move it.
Yeah!
I spill my drink.
If you need help, talk to one of the receptionists.
So much for it, you know.
You're the one that just... You shouldn't be back here.
It is a simple request.
also some bots. The police won't bother you, but stay away from the troopers. The government has restricted access to the metro. You'll have to get around on foot. Not sure what you might find in these buildings, but if you break and enter, be prepared to deal with the Paris police. You found the club, the only one to stay open during martial law. They've hiked up the cover, but you will have to pay if you want to find out if Nicolette is inside. That little building is a hostel, lodging for backpackers. Strange, I'm picking up infrared pulses. Why would a bakery need electronic speakers? Underground. The security code we have is 8456, but that's an old piece of trivia from our days at Area 51. I doubt it still works on all the doors.
Why did they change the codes? Howard Strong. They want his group to have exclusive access to the asylum. Always trusting civilians. Look where that got us.
Paige knows what he's doing.
Yeah!